and welcome to CEO Insights. I'm Marilyn de Guzman with Investing News Network. We are at PDAC in Toronto and we're sitting down with Chris Donaldson, Executive Chairman at TinOne Resources, to talk about the market landscape for tin. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Nice to have you here, Chris. So let's start off with providing us an overview of your company and bringing us up to date on some of your priority projects.
Yeah, sure. So TinOne is a junior mining company focused on tin, and we trade on the TSX Venture under the symbol TORC and on the OTCQB under the symbol TORCF. So relatively new company, came out about 2 years ago, and we have assembled a basket of properties in Tasmania and Australia. And we've been focused on our flagship property, which is called Great Pyramid. And then we've got a secondary property called Aberfoyle that we're starting to do some work on now as well.
Sounds good. So let's talk about, let's have some high-level conversation on the tin market landscape.
Sure.
So there's, much of the attention has been on the more popular battery metals and, copper, lithium, and even rare earths. But tin's wide range of application really has made it, land on the list of the U.S. and Canada's critical metals.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, for sure, it's a critical metal and often considered the forgotten battery metal, really. The primary use, over half of tin use, is not tin cans, which most people think, but it's actually in solder. So it's very much the glue that holds batteries together. So anything with electricity on it has an application with tin as well. So in terms of supply demand, it's very favorable. It's expanding over the next decade or so as the electrification of the world kind of continues. So in that respect, it's very positive. The really interesting part, though, is not really the demand, but on the supply side. So 80% of the world's tin comes from, we'll call them dubious jurisdictions, DRC, Indonesia, Myanmar, and China. And so our projects being in Australia, very coveted right now. You're seeing, a strategy to get critical minerals from good jurisdictions. And so having a project in Australia is coveted, and certainly the narrative is shifting now, is where can we find these projects in good jurisdictions. So we're fortunate to have assembled these over the last 5 years, and now we're starting to advance them again.
Right. So why should investors be paying attention to tin right now? Like, what are the recent developments?
Tin is a very interesting market. It's think of it copper, but it's a fraction of a percent of the size. So there are very few companies in the space, and I think we joined the International Tin Association. We were the 10th company to join. So there are very few of us, and like copper, there's been underinvestment in the space for a number of years. So at some point there's going to be a real supply-demand crunch, which we're starting to see. And we saw it was exacerbated last year when tin hit an all-time high of 51,000 a ton, and there's a lot of interest in the tin market. Unfortunately, China, which is typically a net importer, they had excess capacity because their factories weren't at full capacity, so they flooded the market. So that 51,000 went down to 17,000 a ton up until November. And now it's rebounded since November. China is importing again. We're back up almost at 30,000 a ton here. So it's a volatile market. You see, for instance, there's a mine in Peru that shut down. That was almost 10% of the world's production. The price spiked. So the price fluctuation of tin, it fluctuates a lot, but long term, it's going in the right direction.
So talk about your projects. Like, what are some of the new developments in your tin projects in Australia?
Yeah, so we've got 4 of them. 3 are in Tasmania. The one we've been focused on is called Great Pyramid. Great Pyramid is a project that was advancing up until the mid-'80s, and then the tin price collapsed and it has stopped. It's got a historical resource on it of about 10,000 tons of contained tin from surface down to about 40 meters. So we've been drilling on that. So that's been mostly what we've done over the last 8 months is did a 5,000 meter drill program. And with 3 goals. So the goal was to prove out the historical resource, test it for mineralization at depth and also laterally. very pleased that we achieved all three of these goals of ours, and have just recently released all of the results on that. So we're at a point now where we're going to assemble that data and move towards updating a resource.
So why should investors pay attention, or why should they be looking at your company?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're a tiny company right now. Really, the size of that resource was not too significant. I think with the re-rating we'll get once we update the resource, we'll be on the we'll garner some more attention on that. So that's point A. And the tin market is starting to come back. And when people are looking to get exposure to tin, there are very few companies out there, and we're one of them. So hopefully we get a bit of an uptick on that. We certainly saw that a year and a half ago when the tin price had its big run. So in addition to that, we've got a second project called Aberfoyle. Now Aberfoyle is about 20 minutes up the road. It's a past producing tin district. It produced over 2 million tons of tin and tungsten up until the mid 80s as well. So, in the old days, they basically just chased these high grade veins, and it didn't really see any modern exploration. So we've been doing some sampling and mapping on that, trying to find the extent of the known veins and also additional veins. And this is where we had a real twist here just a few weeks ago. We went back and did some multi-element testing. Again, looking for tin and tungsten, but we found lithium. And it's not something that we were, decided to go into. It was a bit by happenstance. We were a little, a lot of people are moving into lithium just because it's kind of the hottest metal right now, or the hottest market right now. Sent it out for re-assays. He came back and it was positive on that. So early days still, but 10 samples showing a decent distribution over about 4 by 8 kilometers, which got us some attention in the market. And so we have now got a more extensive sampling program going on now, targeted at the lithium. The Aberfoyle project's about 100 square kilometers. We want to see what extent we have on that. We've also got a third project called Rattler Range, which has similar type of rocks. These are lithium mica rocks. And just by coincidence, we have control over the majority of that type of rock in Tasmania. So very exciting. Next step will be to see, do we have scale? Do we have a district, a new emerging lithium district?
So this TinOne, are you sort of focused on exploration, or do you take the project further into development?
Yeah, so right now it's very much on the exploration side. I mean, we're trying to prove up Great Pyramid and get that to a certain size that we can move towards a study, and then ultimately into development. We're a little ways away from that. Aberfoyle, we're trying to decide what to do with that right now. We're a small company. We can't do everything all at once, but this lithium discovery is one that's we're definitely pursuing right now, and we'll see where that takes us. It won't be long. So we're sending off our first batch of samples this week. It takes a couple weeks to get those back. We'll know here in the next month whether we're onto something very significant.
And if this is looking forward, but have you talked about your plans if you do find there's significant lithium in there?
I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know the answer to that right now. But what I will say is it will give us a lot of flexibility. So it would be two sides of the company. We still have a very strong tin asset, which is growing, and we're creating value for the company on the tin side. The lithium might be a different animal, so we'll have options on that. Certainly, it's easier to raise money on the back of lithium discoveries, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. So you mentioned, there's it's right now the tin on the supply side of things. There's not a lot for now, but on the flip side of that, it's in the critical metals list for both the U.S. and Canada. And so, are you seeing? Is this something that you're anticipating that is going to gain traction soon, and you're sort of in the beginning of it, and people are going to start?
Yeah. I mean, we were forward enough looking to assemble these assets 5 years ago when nobody cared about tin, and then put it out obviously when the tin price went up. It's at a level right now which is kind of the incentive price for new projects. We're starting to see people come into the market and look what's out there. And as I mentioned before, there's not a lot of companies on that. So yeah, what will bring it into favor. I mean, certainly the electrification of everything on that. It's green funds that are looking to have a little bit of exposure to tin, and then it's just the whole mandate or narrative of getting critical supply from Western jurisdictions.
So what does 2023 look like for the company?
Well, it's going to be interesting. Like I said, so we'll look to update our resource on the Great Pyramid, and then we'll also see what we can flesh out of our latest round of soil sampling that we're doing at Aberfoyle, and if that to see what extent on the lithium results are and over what scale. And I think scale is important on that. But if that does flush out, it's going to be a very exciting year for us.
Okay, well, we'll certainly would love to have you back again to give us some updates on all that
Yeah,
activity.
and I'd love to come back and tell more about the story.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. That's our CEO Insights. Join us again next time for another engaging conversation.